Hey guys, so to run through Preptober Day 8 stuff, I'm going to start with the dealer, which is the one that I made the most progress in, both nano related and outside of nano. But that was 2,536 words. Things went relatively well there. Like I said in Day 7's video, I hit 40,000 words, now I'm at 41,386. Beau is currently in the last scene that I was working on, which isn't a scene that I finished, but it's one that I was working on. It's the day after Beau collected all of the evidence from an old gang hideout, and now he is at the lab. He has already sorted all of the evidence. That was done the day prior. It's all been bagged and tagged, and today he is finally unbagging those again, so that way he can actually analyze them and check for DNA and fingerprints and all of that, and see if there are any matches in the system, in hopes that he can find someone that links to the prints that they have from the bullet casing from the crime scene, in hopes that the shooter is in the system that way, because I've already run the fingerprints and the shooter's not in the system, as per usual. But things are going well there. I'm very happy with progress there. And then I worked on Initiate the Boys, and that was 518 words. Things are still going relatively well there. A lot of it was continuing the conversation between Aramis and Renee. Aramis being the guy who is taking care of Beau. He's an older forensic analyst at the station Beau works with, and he has more or less taken Beau under his wing because Beau has a lot of issues, and he has a fear that if he stays with his adoptive parents, Renee and Denzel, for too long, that they will also get sick of him, like his biological parents did. They didn't really get sick of him, but that's how he tends to phrase it, because it's less harmful for him. But they gave him up when he was 6 years old, and he has a fear that if he hangs out with Renee and Denzel for exactly 6 years with no breaks, that they too will give him up. So he stays with Aramis most of the time. And the last scene that I was working on, which I think is actually still in progress, was a continuation of a conversation between Aramis and Renee about Beau, and then that conversation wrapped up, and in the same scene he went back to the car and was talking to Beau about the little device thing that Beau is working on, which is the very first device that Beau makes, because when we see Beau in like the Beau Austin series and the Beau Austin Taylor series, he has invented several things to help make the identifying process of DNA and fingerprints and photos linking to photos in the system, stuff like that. He's worked to design things that make those processes faster, and in the Young Beau series, actually I think in book 1 maybe, we see him working on developing a blood tester that can read DNA and match it to the DNA that has been programmed into the tester's system. And he's still working on that, because he's given up on it multiple times, and Aramis always talks him back up and tells him that he can do anything he puts his mind to. And I love Aramis, by the way. He calls Beau Little Duck, because the first time he met him, he called him an odd little duck. I love him so much. But things are going well there. Sometimes writing Young Beau is like pulling teeth, because he doesn't do a lot of talking. He does a lot of, I'm going to sit here quietly and telling my story is your problem now, which doesn't work for me, because I no longer force my characters to do things, so if he's not talking, then the story isn't going anywhere, which is also a good point to make as to why I no longer, well, multiple reasons, but one of the reasons I no longer publish stories before they're complete, before the entire series is complete, is because at any time the characters could just stop telling their stories. So if I'm like, 6 books into a series and then suddenly the character's like, oops, that's all you get now, I would prefer to have it not published first. Because that has happened multiple times with my books, while I'm writing them, not while I'm publishing them. But I've gotten to like book 2, 3, 4, and the character's suddenly been like, okay, that's all I'm willing to share. Which is super cool. But overall things are going well there. Sometimes we see stuff from Beau's perspective, sometimes we see the conversations from Aramis's perspective, and then every now and then we go see, well, I would say the killer, but he's technically not the killer. I can't say much more than that without producing a ton of spoilers, but I will say that he is the boss man behind the killing, but he is not the one who pulled the trigger, more or less. But things are going well there. When Beau is talking. He was talking yesterday, day 8, which was great. And then I think the only other Camp Nano thing that I did was Ekbal, and I only wrote 308 words there. Things are slow. There are 2 main characters in the Carver Baxter series, obviously. Carver, Kenneth Carver, and Baxter, Alex Baxter. They are both sheriff's deputies. They're both partners. And some days things go very, very well. Some days those scenes are written from Ken's perspective. Sometimes they're written from Alex's perspective. It's not an even split between them. Some of my books that have 2 distinct main characters are even splits. Like, it'll be this character one chapter, this character the next. But the Carver Baxter series isn't that way. They just alternate scenes whenever it suits the story, whenever that character is the one who is speaking the loudest for that scene. And the scenes with Alex recently have been going relatively well, but the scenes with Ken have been going much slower. Ken was a soldier before he became a sheriff's deputy, and he has PTSD. But this is set in like 2000, I can't remember if this book is 2003 or 2004. I only check the dates when I need to do research or when it's the next day, but I think it's 2004. But either way, it's not disclosed to his boss. He's scared that it will make him lose his job. He's scared of the stigma that comes with it. It was 2004. Talking about your mental health and what you saw overseas wasn't a huge thing. Even today, you see people who talk about the things that they've seen, and not just soldiers, just people in general who have PTSD. You see them talk about the things that caused that trauma to them, and people still dismiss them and tell them just get over it, and it doesn't work that way. And a lot of Ken's troubles in the book and in the series spawn from that, and keeping things consistent so that way his PTSD doesn't only pop up when it suits the plot, is something that I do my best to keep in mind as well. In addition to the characters telling their stories, I do my best to make sure that it's not just suiting the plot. That when something triggers a memory or a flashback, that it's not just because, oh, this is a tense moment, this is when it should disrupt him. Ken is scared of normal things. Sometimes him and Ken are in a diner talking, and a ketchup bottle falls off the table, and it creates a loud enough noise that it triggers something in his head. It doesn't have to be an attack that occurs during a high-stakes moment that would put him or Alex's life in danger. The simple moments, in my mind, and in the beta readers that have seen these books during the previous rewrites, I think one of the only things I ever did correctly during the other rewrites of the Carver Baxter series was that Ken has always had fears and triggers revolving around simple things as well, and a lot of people that have read the previous versions of these books have always said that that's some of the most impactful stuff. When you see this simple thing that no one else would look twice at, and for Ken it creates a flashback to some absolutely terrible moment in his life. And I do my best to keep that as consistent as possible. And sometimes Ken is very, very helpful with that. He's like, well, here's this thing. This is what happened today. And other days, Ken is like, I'm absolutely not talking to you about anything that's wrong or anything that's going on in my head. Ever. And Ken has been that way for about the last 2.5 weeks, give or take. He's been that way more or less since I started the book. He's much less talkative in this book than he is in the others, and I don't just mean to me. He's also much less talkative to Alex, because Alex is the only person that he talks to about his PTSD and about what triggered a certain situation or anything like that. And he's still not completely open with Alex. If Alex crosses a line or even gets close to a line, Ken gets all spooky and tells him to back down, and he calls him Baxter instead of Bax. He calls him Bax most of the time, but when he wants him to stop, he calls him Baxter, and he does that pretty consistently throughout the other 2 books. But in book 3, he pretty much just shuts down entirely, and he doesn't want to talk to anyone about anything. Me included. But that's what was happening today. Today it was a scene from Ken's perspective, and he's not very open. So I eventually just said, okay, I'm done. You can have your time away from me, I'll have my time away from you, and I'll go move on to another book. I love letting my characters take control. I love writing character-driven stories. They still have, you know, heavy plots, but I love that my characters' actions drive the story forward, and I love letting them take control, because when I didn't do that, I hated the work I was producing. As per usual, it's all about finding what works for you. If you're a heavy planner, if you like putting stakes into the book and letting the characters react to that, or however you do it, that's okay. This is just how I prefer to do it. We all have our ways. But I'm hoping that by the end of the month, Ken is more of a talkative go-getter and willing to share his stories so I can finish the book. I know next to nothing about this particular plot. I know that a man was beaten. I know that he's alive, but I don't know who beat him, save for the fact that it was more than one person. And I know why they beat him, which I can't tell you right now because that's a spoiler. It might not be later, but it is right now. So, but I'm waiting for Ken to come forth and be like, hey, this is how the rest of this scene goes. But he's not being very helpful right now, so working on it. But for day 9, I do have plans to start some sort of preparation for the romance novel, I hope, or novella. I don't know what it will be. But I think I'm going to let people vote for which one I do, because I honestly cannot decide. I mean, I'm probably going to end up writing both of them at some point, though I'm going to try and behave myself and not start both of them in November. But still, I want to know which one to write first, and I let people vote for all the Beau Austin series books, so letting people vote for the romances makes sense too. I might even let people vote for the initialed ones. But we'll see what happens, and I'll update you as soon as I have it. But yeah, things are moving along. Things are, you know, progress is being made throughout, but it's just taking a while on certain books. I'm still aiming to finish, whichever books I'm aiming to finish. The Dealer, Initiate the Boys, The Beating of Ekbal Lodrin, Beatings from a Butcher. Still aiming to finish those 4 before the end of the month. The Dealer, I think, still will be the easiest, but we'll see how things go. And I'll update you guys when I have more updates. But for now, that's all that I have for day 8's update. I talked a little bit more about my books than I planned to, but the Camp Nano and the Normal Nano series are about the only times that I actually like in-depth talk about what my books are about. Otherwise, I'm just kind of like, here's a word count, this was the progress, ta-da. But during the Nano stuff, because, you know, you're like writing a book in the month and all of that, I tend to talk more about them, so hooray! But that's all I have for day 8. As per usual, if you're doing Normal Nano, I hope that it's going well. I hope that your plotting is going well, or your planning, or your preparation, or whatever you're doing this month. I hope it's going well, and I hope it continues to go well. But if you enjoyed this video update, a like is always appreciated, and if you'd like to stay updated on my editing, my writing, the Nano videos, the gaming videos I upload roughly every Friday, or anything that I do on this channel in between, feel free to subscribe. All the links to my authors pages, as well as the links to my social media, are in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.